Hey guys, are we all good in the hood today? I'm hoping we're all good in the hood today. Today I will be commenting on, not reacting to, commenting on the origin of consciousness, how unaware things became aware. Consciousness is one of the, mm, probably the biggest question in biology. Where did it come from? What is it? How is it defined? I've often seen consciousness, my personal definition, my personal take on it is consciousness is the ability to think about our thoughts. Before, you would have, you have a dog, you might not think that dog is conscious. Is it? We don't know. But the dog can be happy, the dog can be sad, the dog can be enraged. But is the dog truly able to consider these feelings? We are able to say, I'm feeling a bit depressed today. Why am I feeling depressed? Is it because of what happened yesterday? That seems to be a unique trend with us. So that's how I'm gonna preface this. I don't know if they're gonna follow. I already see the first line, and that's quite in line with what I've just said.
Consciousness is perhaps the biggest riddle in nature. Stripped to its core meaning, consciousness is what allows us to be aware both of our surroundings and of our own inner state. But thinking about consciousness has this habit of taking us round in circles.
Yeah, boy.
We all intuitively know what consciousness is. It's this. It's what you're experiencing here, right now. But once we try to pinpoint just what exactly it is, it leaves us grasping at thin air. And not just us. Philosophers and scientists struggle to define consciousness.
I believe that when scientists stopped taking philosophy seriously, that is where, like, that scientists and philosophers need to come together, because a lot of scientists, people in the scientific community, think that philosophy is unnecessary and complete bullshit, whereas no, no, it's very well needed for us to understand the concept, certain concepts, instead of just looking at something and analyzing it from a logical perspective. Because at the end of the day, we are animals. We are just advanced monkeys. So we really need to be able to combine the efforts of science, which are very valuable, and the efforts of philosophers, which are also very valuable. But it's not taken seriously.
Different schools and ideas compete with one another, but no one has come close to figuring it
Not
out.
even close.
It's unsettling to realize that we don't understand what makes us aware of ourselves and the world.
I can see why this would make someone religious.
In this fuzzy area, consciousness and intelligence are also related, although they are not the same.
Not at all.
We'll talk in greater depth about theories of consciousness and intelligence in other videos.
Basically, we don't know if dolphins or octopi, known as cephalopods, um, because cephalo, head, pods, legs. It's just head connected to 8 legs, you know. Um, we know they express a certain level of intelligence. However, we are not aware of their state of consciousness. And we can't talk to dolphins or elephants or things like that. We just haven't reached that point yet. Maybe when we do reach that point, we'll be able to understand. And I see that happening probably within the next 10 years. Call me optimistic. I don't know.
Like much of what makes us human, our consciousness is likely to have evolved from less complex forms as a product of evolution by natural selection. It has probably emerged from an immense several hundred million year sequence of countless microsteps that together make up a sort of gradient of consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just like cut and dry, like it probably was a slow developing process. And that's why I believe we do notice some kind of intelligence slash consciousness in like what we would know as lesser organisms. But it's obviously not just, Australopithecus afarensis is not conscious, and suddenly Homo neanderthalis is conscious. Like, it's not just going to be an instant development.
What was the first step on this path from the non-conscious to the basic consciousness that ultimately led to the convoluted consciousness we humans enjoy today?
Extremely convoluted, and consciousness has its good things, but it also has its downfalls. We are not prepared we were not prepared for the rapid expansion of our brains and our world. Our brains are tuned to only know up to 150 people at a time, ever, throughout our entire lives. Now this whole social media landscape, and even people sometimes in person who have a lot of friends, their brains are getting overloaded, and you wonder why there's a mental health epidemic. It's because we're torturing our brains. They have no idea what's going on. Wow, I waffled so much, and it wasn't even the intro yet.
Take a stone. The consensus is that a stone is not conscious, though not everyone agrees even on this.
What? Okay, that's just bullshit. Come on, guys.
Some panpsychists claim that a lump of rock may...
What does panpsychist? All things have a mind or a mind-like quality. That does not seem correct, but it's an opinion. So I guess you have a right to your opinion, dude.
may have an inner life. However, there are no real grounds for any such assumption,
Exactly.
since stones never show behavior.
No.
Their inner life can neither be proven nor disproven. A more common starting point is with living things. A living thing, or a self, is a part of the universe that sustains itself and makes more of its kind. To do so, it needs energy. And this is...
Question for you guys. I'd like you to answer in the comments. Do you think viruses are living? This is one other question that is a very I don't know where I stand on this actually, because viruses can't reproduce on their own, and that is basically one of the criteria of life. They need a host cell to reproduce, but on the other end of the spectrum, they can reproduce they can reproduce, they evolve, and they react to the environment that they're in, just using a host cell. So tell me your opinion.
is where an awareness of the world comes in handy. The original function of consciousness was probably to direct a mobile self that was short of energy to a fresh supply of food. On the smallest...
Which, of course, you would imagine, because we need energy to sustain life, and in order to get that energy, we need to consume things. So, everything that didn't develop this basic simple consciousness that is now being described would, as a result, die off. Natural selection.
scales of life, you don't need to be aware to find food. Trichoplax adherens, one of the simplest of all animals, moves around haphazardly. It slows down in the presence of food and speeds up in its absence. This is highly effective and makes the tiny creature spend more time where there is food than where there is not. But it never moves in a particular direction towards a particular target, and there's no need for it to be conscious of its environment.
I would also sea sponges, like in filter feeders, Okay, we've all seen swimming clams, which are kind of cute. But, like, it's oh, I lost my train of thought. I was thinking about cute clams. Sea sponges, right? They are filter feeders. They don't need to move around. They're just huge conglomerates of single cellular organisms that filter feed. They just take in whatever comes. They don't need to be conscious. Some things need to be conscious, some things don't.
The first major step towards consciousness was probably taken when mobile cells started to move themselves directionally, moving towards what was good for them, say food, and away from what was less good,
Predators.
say someone else who thought that they were food. Take Dugisia tigrina, a tiny worm known
Dugisia
for its funny
tigrina.
face. Sometimes
Funny face,
Dugisia
wait.
tigrina, a tiny
Oh,
worm known for its funny face. Sometimes the worm is hungry, and sometimes not. This means that when it moves, the worm self is not simply producing an automatic response to an external stimulus, but that its actions depend upon its inner physiological state.
so having a nervous system does not necessarily indicate any kind of intelligence or complexity, right? Don't quote me on this, but I think there are multicellular organisms that we don't believe are conscious. But then again, the line is very, very, very blurry, you know? So, this worm, when it's hungry, it knows I need to move, I need to find food. But when its belly is full, it's like, okay, we can go rest now. That's a sign of basic intelligence and consciousness.
Whether it's hungry or sated. Automatic response to an external stimulus, but that its actions depend upon its inner physiological state, whether it's hungry or sated. When it's just eaten, the worm is less energetic, but when starved for a while, it will move itself in the direction of tasty things. It uses chemoreceptors on its head to smell its environment and guide it in the direction where the scent of food is strongest. After finding and eating a meal, our worm buddy heads back to a dark, sheltered spot to digest it in safety.
So take this in contrast to something like a bacteria that just swims around in hopes that it will come across something that finds food. Like this thing knows. It knows of food, it knows of its own hunger, and it's thinking about its thoughts, right? I'm hungry right now. So I'm gonna go eat after I'm done recording this video. Same thing with this worm here. I'm scared of like attackers, rapists, murderers. That's why my door is locked. Same exact thing with this worm here. You know, it's avoiding predators and again, a product of natural selection. Things that didn't show these properties probably died out and allowed this worm to be the survivor. It's quite a shame that death has shaped our world, our living world, but survival of the fittest. As Flowey would say, it's kill or be killed.
Until it's hungry again. But animals that blindly follow their sense of smell don't have a concrete objective in view. They still lack any sense of where they are heading. So the next step on the ladder of consciousness
Wait, sorry, I got
have a
distracted by my
concrete
fucking
objective in view.
upstairs neighbors now.
They still lack any sense of until it's hungry again. But animals that blindly follow their sense of smell don't have a concrete objective in view.
Do they? They're going towards what they smell. I mean, like, let's make a comparison. A blind stoner, you know? A blind stoner smells weed and then directs itself towards that weed and will respond by, asking or maybe even just taking the weed. Like, okay, terrible analogy, but you get what I mean.
They still lack any sense of where they are heading. So the next step on the ladder of consciousness is to add some perception at a distance, like vision. Vision adds context and depth to our world. With vision comes a sense of the space we and our food exist in. It adds a whole new dimension to awareness and is a huge step towards more familiar consciousness.
That is quite interesting. So, when life first developed, for millions of years, photons were essentially like useless to life. Like, we didn't know And I'm saying we, as in we living organisms, we didn't know what things were. We just, our factory receptors within our brain that are up here knew. But we couldn't see. Damn.
An optical apparatus like an eye enables us to visualize our goal and lock onto it. But even at this stage, a self is only able to pursue its food as long as it sees it. So the next logical step needs to happen on the inside. To visualize food in its absence, for example,
It needs to have some kind of memory. This, like, think about a baby when you're training when you're raising a baby, right? You want to teach it, like, a major step in development in human children is permanence. Just an example, like, gone, I no longer exist now. To this child, I'm gone permanently. Us, we know, I've just moved away. You've already created that kind of environment or kind of thought process through evolution.
a self needs to create some sort of inner representation of the world. Now, an animal can continue looking for food even when it escapes its sensory range.
I'm so sorry, guys. My fucking upstairs neighbor is doing jumping jacks or something.
Now, an animal can continue looking for food even when it escapes its sensory range.
We're slowly building it up.
Because of this inner representation of what is relevant in the world, it can remain focused on its food and its desire to get it. Our self now exists in a world it can get familiar with.
I would believe this to be basic consciousness. The ability to detect chemicals in the air, so having chemoreceptors, the ability to visualize your world, and the concept and the ability to understand the concept of object permanence. For example, when something is out of your view, that does not mean it no longer exists, as I previously outlined.
The ability to remember things has emerged. Thanks to memory, animals can be distracted from a pursuit for a few seconds, but quickly continue their path afterwards.
Goldfish.
A related phenomenon is called object permanence.
Okay.
This describes our awareness that things continue to exist even when we can't see them.
I promise, guys, this is a blind reaction. Like, I have not watched this video. Damn.
This cognitive skill is enjoyed by some mammals and birds, and perhaps other animals too. Human babies tend to develop this ability around the time they turn 8 months,
8
while
months.
baby chickens show this ability within a day or two of being born.
Now, there are two types of development, right? Development, or that organism, or whatever, right? There are things that cannot sustain themselves and need to be raised to an adult age, such as Homo sapiens. Because if a baby is left abandoned, it will not survive. Whereas a baby chicken, as they say, yeah, within a day or two of being born, pretty much can live by itself. Like, its mother can be taken away from it and it won't die. So we have organisms that rely on their parents, and they often have a stronger connection with these parents. And we have organisms that don't rely on their parents, and sometimes when they're born, they don't even know who their parents are. Their parents just laid eggs and went away, and those offspring just fend for themselves from birth, which is crazy.
The capacity to remember a thing in its absence suggests at least a basic sense of time.
Ooh, that's quite a correlation to make. I wonder how they're gonna justify this.
A sense of time is a big step on the ladder of consciousness.
I mean, it is the fourth temporal dimension, so it's time is the ability to detect sunrise and sundown probably evolved quite early, meaning that the ability to have a circadian rhythm and know when the time is right to go inside and hide from the wolves, and when the time is right to come outside and look for food, that probably developed quite early. But then again, I'm waffling. I don't know.
It may also enable a self to look forward from the present moment and anticipate the future.
Ooh, this is where it starts to get a bit icky for human beings because we look forward and we see a future and we envision a future, and when these expectations are not met, we kind of are not very happy.
Adult chickens, for example, are able to resist a meal put in front of them if they expect to receive a bigger meal as a prize for holding back for a while. This sort of delayed gratification means there is an ability to visualize a reward that only exists in the future, which can be quite a challenge even for adult humans.
Yeah.
Western scrub jays are experts in delayed gratification. They show an even more elaborate sense of the future when they hide food in a cache to retrieve it at a later date. The scrub jays will even re-hide their food if they become aware that a potential thief has been watching them.
That's absolutely crazy. Like, you might think of like squirrels hiding acorns, they exhibit this exact same behavior. But that's crazy. We're starting to get to a certain level of intelligence now that is quite significant.
This means that they know that there are other hungry selves out there who are aware and see the world from their own different perspective.
Yeah, to be aware of others, the fact that others exist, and to know that others are like you, and to know the intentions of others. We're really expanding quite quickly here.
Crafty scrub jays can sort of read the mind of their fellow birds.
Just as a side note, I just thought trees and some plants exhibit some form of intelligence. I'm not going to say consciousness, but they can communicate throughout their root systems. We were taught as children that a tree's root system, this guy and his jumping jacks. Oh my freaking god, no.
This ability.
We were taught as children that a tree is symmetrical vertically, so its root system is the same as what is above. However, we have since discovered that this is not the case. We have discovered that, oh my god, we have we have discovered that most trees' roots expand laterally throughout the topsoil because most nutrients exist in the topsoil. Why would the tree have to go down and down and down where it basically retrieves less and less nutrients? This lateral expansion of roots means that the root system of a tree is often quite much wider than what you see on the surface, and it allows trees in a forest to even communicate with each other, so that if one is axed down, it kind of outputs some kind of signal, some kind of chemical signal to the other trees, knowing that the end is near.
To mind read is crucial for complex levels of consciousness. By putting yourself in the position of others, you can outsmart a rich competitor or empathize with a hungry friend.
So now we're starting to get into the ability to manipulate others. Wow. Wow, I thought that was a human trait. We're learning so much today.
Language takes the ability to read minds and represent what is absent to a whole new level. Words enable us to construct hypotheses about the world, make detailed plans, and to communicate them with others. Words enable us to think about ourselves and our place in the universe,
And can communicate those
even
ideas.
about our own consciousness, which is something we'll be doing more in future
Oh,
videos.
come on, expand more on that. Oh, I wanted to see more about words, because verbal communication, whether between dolphins or whales or sharks, is a way for them to communicate ideas with each other, which is obviously a major step towards developing complex, intelligent life.
So, what is the origin of our consciousness? It probably began as the directed motion of a hungry self towards a source of food, with the survival benefits this gave it over competitors that moved at random or not at all. It probably all started with the urge for more food. So even with the sophisticated consciousness that allows us to dream about space, build skyscrapers, or obsess about novels, it's not surprising that we can't stop thinking about where we'll get our next meal.
I'm so hungry right now, bro.
Collectively, we've put so much thought and ingenuity into getting food that we can now just get our food to come to us with little conscious effort. This video is part one of a...
And this is why I personally believe human evolution has stopped or slowed down in a major degree. Because we no longer, like 99, 90, don't, 80, 90, a lot of the world no longer needs to go out and hunt for their food. And it's no longer survival of the fittest. The weakest will still survive. I'm not a eugenicist, I'm just outlining this. The weakest will still survive, and we have slowed down and maybe even stopped our evolution due to natural selection because everyone survives, regardless of their level of fitness in the world.
The three-part video series relating to big questions of life and the universe.
I would love to grant from the Templeton World Charity Foundation. I think if I go on after this, I'm gonna have to put an ad marker on my video, which I really don't want to do. So, I will be reacting to these 2 extra videos because I didn't think I would be able to make that much of an impact or that much of an insight into this. However, I believe I provided sufficient insight. How long have you... this is more than double the length of the original video. I'm so sorry. But thanks for watching. I hope I provided sufficient insight. If you liked it, drop a like. I'd really appreciate it. If you disliked it, I don't see the dislikes. So please let me know below how I can improve. I'm always looking to do better for you guys. Thank you guys all. Have a blessed day. Deuces.